Hyunha nodded. Move us between the fleet formations. Prepare psychological warfare packages. The terminus glided silently into the heart of the battle zone, passing between massive capital ships that continued firing at each other, oblivious to the human vessel. Neither the Alliance nor the Draxians had considered the possibility of an enemy ship penetrating the battle line this way. It simply wasn't done in their rigid war traditions. In position, reported Navigation Officer Yujin. We are within broadcast range of both command ships. Deploy Phase 1, ordered Yunha. Sung Ho activated a system uniquely designed by human engineers, transmitting targeted electromagnetic pulses. The terminus began broadcasting precisely calibrated signals designed to interfere with the neural interfaces used by both alien species to control their ships. Not enough to harm them, but sufficient to introduce subtle doubts, delays, and confusions into their decision-making processes. On the Alliance flagship, Admiral Daeho suddenly found himself questioning orders he had given countless times before. On the Draxian command vessel, War Commander Hyun-Ki felt an inexplicable hesitation before launching his next attack wave. Phase 1 showing effects, reported Seung-ho, monitoring changes in the alien fleet movements. Their coordination is degrading by 12%. Phase 2, Yunha commanded, targeted communications disruption. The terminus released thousands of tiny quantum-entangled drones, each programmed to attach to a specific communications relay on the major ships. Once in place, they began inserting false data into the fleet communications. Nothing dramatic, just small inconsistencies that made both sides increasingly uncertain about what was happening. The bridge crew watched as the perfect choreography of the ancient battle began to falter. Ships moved out of formation. Weapons fired at incorrect targets. Shields adjusted to defend against attacks that weren't coming. Both fleets are showing signs of confusion, reported Junho, unable to keep excitement from his voice. They're trying to re-establish standard protocols, but our interventions are preventing it. Yunha nodded, her expression serious. This is just the beginning. Prepare Phase 3, the decisive stroke. For the first time in 800,000 years, the Eternal War faced something it had never encountered before. A completely unpredictable opponent who refused to follow the established rules of engagement. And this opponent had no intention of becoming just another participant in the endless conflict. Phase 3 ready, reported Weapons Officer Min Seo. Awaiting your command, Captain. Yunha took a deep breath. Commence Phase 3. Let's end an 800,000-year war. What followed was 50 minutes of warfare unlike anything the galaxy had witnessed in 800,000 years. Singularity missiles deployed, reported Weapons Officer Min Seo, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. Unlike conventional weapons, these didn't explode. Instead, they created tiny, controlled gravitational distortions that disrupted the precise formations both fleets relied on. The human weapons didn't target the massive alien warships directly. Instead, they struck with surgical precision at command nodes, communication relays, and strategic weak points that centuries of ritual combat had left undefended. Within the first 10 minutes, 3 Alliance flagships and 4 Draxian dreadnoughts had been neutralized without destruction, their crews alive but unable to communicate or maneuver. They're trying to adapt, Junho reported, watching the alien vessels attempt to reorganize. But they're following emergency protocols that are just as predictable as their attack patterns. Continue with Phase 3, ordered Unha calmly. Release the quantum viruses. The terminus broadcast specially designed programs that infiltrated both sides' battle networks. By minute 25, weapon systems across both fleets began to stand down or target empty space. Shield generators cycled through random configurations, leaving vessels temporarily vulnerable. On the Alliance flagship, Admiral Daeho stared in disbelief at his malfunctioning systems. What is happening? He demanded of his officers. Is this a new Draxian weapon? At the same moment, Draxian War Commander Hyun-Ki was asking his staff the exact same question about the Alliance. Neither side realizes we're causing the disruption, Seung-ho noted with satisfaction. They still think they're only fighting each other. That changes now, said Yunha. Minute 30. Reveal our presence. Open communication channels to both. Command ships simultaneously. The terminus suddenly dropped its gravitational camouflage, becoming clearly visible at the center of the battle zone. Both alien fleets, now aware of the small vessel that had somehow penetrated their formations, attempted to target it, only to find their weapons unresponsive. "This is Captain Yun Ha of Earth's HSS Terminus," she broadcast, her image appearing on the command decks of all major vessels in both fleets. "Your 800,000-year war ends today." The alien commanders were stunned into silence. No one had ever dared to make such a claim. "We have demonstrated our capability to neutralize both your forces without destruction," Yunha continued. "In 35 minutes we have accomplished what neither of your civilizations could in 800 millennia. We offer peace negotiations starting immediately." "This is an outrage," Deho finally responded. "You are our allies, humans. You have betrayed the Alliance. And you would side with these Alliance oppressors?" Yunki added in disbelief. "We side with peace," Yunha replied simply. "Something both your peoples have forgotten how to imagine." The terminus then deployed its final system, a network of quantum projectors that created a neutral meeting space between the fleets. Within this field, representatives from both sides could communicate directly without weapons. "You have 40 minutes to send your representatives to this neutral zone," Yunha instructed, "or we will be forced to demonstrate even more of our capabilities." Neither ancient power believed the threat at first. A Draxian cruiser attempted to break formation and attack the terminus directly. Min Seo calmly targeted it with a precision singularity beam that froze the vessel in place, suspended in a localized time distortion. "The cruiser and its crew are unharmed," she reported, "but they'll experience only 1 second of time while we experience 10 minutes. They're effectively paused." This demonstration finally convinced both commanders that the humans possessed technologies neither side had developed in their long war. At minute 45, shuttles from both command ships approached the neutral zone. Admiral Deho and Imperator, Hyun-Ki, hereditary enemies whose ancestors had fought each other for millennia, found themselves face to face for the first time. "How is this possible?" Deho asked, looking at the human captain who stood between them. "One ship cannot end a war that has consumed galaxies." "Because you forgot the purpose of war," Yunha replied. "It's not an end in itself. It's meant to achieve peace." By minute 50, both commanders had agreed to a ceasefire, the first real pause in hostilities in 800,000 years. In the days that followed, human diplomats led by Ambassador Jiho helped broker a lasting peace treaty. Both ancient civilizations began the painful process of learning how to exist without their defining conflict. As the treaty was signed, Captain Yun-Ha stood alongside the once enemy commanders. "Today marks the beginning of a new era," she said. "Not one defined by war, but by what comes after. The galaxy would never be the same again. Take us centuries to develop on our own." A scientist named Jae Sung, who had been quietly analyzing the data provided by the Alliance, spoke up. "There's something else to consider. Their war has been going on for nearly 1,000,000 years. That suggests neither side knows how to end it, or perhaps even wants to." "What are you suggesting?" Minji asked. "I'm suggesting we accept their offer, but with our own agenda. We learn everything we can from them, while appearing to be the simple, grateful species they expect." What the Alliance failed to understand was that humans, despite their youth, possessed something neither ancient power had retained after eons of conflict: innovation, and more importantly, they had not yet learned to accept endless war as inevitable. Into 4. The following weeks, Earth officially accepted the Alliance's proposal. Taeyeon was pleased but not surprised. It was, after all, the logical choice for a vulnerable young species. As the first Alliance advisors arrived to begin Earth's integration into the galactic community, they remained completely unaware that humanity was already planning something unprecedented. The humans smiled and nodded at their new allies, while their best minds secretly began to analyze Alliance technology with a perspective that had been lost to civilizations trapped in an eternal conflict. The war that had endured for 800,000 years was about to meet something it had never encountered before. A species that refused to accept that some problems couldn't be solved. While officially deliberating on the Alliance's offer, Earth scientists and military strategists began studying the alien technologies with unprecedented intensity. Chief Engineer Hyunwoo spent sleepless nights analyzing the principles behind Alliance weaponry. His lab, hidden deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, buzzed with activity as researchers examined alien artifacts with fresh human perspective. "Look at this," Hyunwoo said to his team, holding up a small Alliance shield generator. "The technology is amazing, but the application is limited. They've been using the same defensive configurations for thousands of years." His assistant, Ji-min, nodded in agreement. "It's like they stopped asking what-if questions long ago." This insight became the foundation of Earth's secret approach to the Galactic War. While appearing to eagerly absorb Alliance teachings, human scientists noticed patterns that the ancient civilizations had long overlooked, not because they lacked intelligence, but because centuries of tradition had narrowed their thinking. Director Minji authorized Project Terminus, the development of a single experimental warship incorporating human approaches to combat. The project facility, built inside an asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter, was officially designated as a training center for human recruits. The aliens fight using established doctrines that haven't changed in thousands of years, explained military strategist Yoonji during a classified briefing. They've forgotten that war at its core is chaos, and humans understand chaos better than anyone. While Alliance advisors taught Earth's military their rigid battle formations and predictable tactics, human engineers were secretly redesigning every system using principles neither the Alliance nor the Draxians had considered. "Their quantum communications are powerful," noted communications specialist Sungmin. "But they only use fixed frequencies. What if we created a system that constantly shifts across the quantum spectrum?" Similar breakthroughs happened across all systems. The Alliance's powerful weapons were designed to overwhelm enemy shields through brute force. Humans instead developed precision targeting systems that could identify and exploit microscopic weaknesses. Within 50 years of first contact, barely a moment in the timeline of the ancient war, the human spaceship Terminus was completed. Unlike the massive, resource-intensive battleships of the ancient civilizations, the Terminus was relatively small, crewed by just 120 specially trained personnel. Captain Yoon-ha stood in the hidden construction bay, looking up at the sleek vessel. Unlike the ornate Alliance ships adorned with the symbols of ancient victories, the Terminus was simple, practical, and utterly unlike anything in the galactic conflict. "It doesn't look very impressive," commented Ambassador Tae-yeon, who had been invited to a carefully orchestrated tour of a small section of the ship. Earth's leaders had decided to present the Terminus as a symbolic first contribution to the Alliance, a gesture of commitment rather than a serious military asset. "We're still learning," Minji replied diplomatically. "This is just our first attempt to apply your teachings." The Alliance representative nodded condescendingly. "Of course. For a young species, even this is an achievement. Perhaps in another century or two, you'll be ready to build vessels that can actually join our fleet." What Taeyeon didn't see were the true innovations hidden throughout the ship. The Terminus housed technologies that combined Alliance and Draxian principles in ways neither side had imagined. Its weapons were designed not to destroy, but to disrupt. Its defenses worked on principles the ancient war had never tested. "They think we're children playing with toys," Yoon-ha said after the Alliance delegation had departed. "That's our greatest advantage." The training of the Terminus crew was equally revolutionary. Instead of specializing in single tasks as both galactic powers had done for millennia, each human crew member was cross-trained in multiple systems. Where Alliance ships required thousands of personnel, each performing one specific function, the Terminus could operate with its small crew adapting to changing situations. "Flexibility," Yoon-ha told her crew during their final briefing. "That's what we have that they've lost. 800,000 years of the same war has made them predictable. We are not." The Alliance, seeing the single vessel as merely symbolic of Earth's commitment to the war effort, permitted it to observe a distant battle, a learning experience for the primitive species. After all, what harm could one small ship from a young civilization possibly do? As the Terminus prepared for its mission, Minji met with Captain Yunha one final time. "The Alliance expects us to watch and learn," Minji said. "Instead, we will teach them something they've forgotten over the centuries." "And what's that?" asked Yunha. Minji smiled. "That wars are meant to end." Captain Yunha stood on the bridge of the HSS Terminus as it approached the Cygnus front, where hundreds of Alliance and Empire capital ships were engaged in their typical, ritualized battle formations. The massive vessels fired at each other in predictable patterns, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space. "They've been fighting in this sector for over 3,000 years, said Tactical Officer Junho, observing the familiar dance of attack and counterattack. The holographic display showed Alliance ships in blue, Draxian vessels in red, moving according to strategies refined over millennia. "And they'll still be fighting in another 3,000 if nothing changes," Yunha replied. She touched the captain's insignia on her uniform, a simple Earth symbol rather than the elaborate rank markings of the Alliance. "Are all systems ready?" Her crew nodded. Each person on the bridge represented humanity's best. Scientists, soldiers, and strategists chosen for their creativity as much as their skills. "Beginning passive scans," announced Science Officer Sung Ho. "The Alliance command ship has acknowledged our arrival. They're instructing us to remain at observation distance." Yunha smiled. "Acknowledge their message. Tell them we're moving to observe from a better vantage point." The Terminus moved slowly toward the edge of the battle zone. To the Alliance observers, it appeared that the inexperienced human crew was simply trying to get a better view of the conflict. None of the ancient warships paid much attention to the small vessel. "Alliance and Draxian command ships identified," reported Junho. "Both are following standard engagement protocols. Their shields are configured for heavy frontal assault. But not for what we're about to do," Yunha said quietly. "Begin Operation Checkmate." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, activating systems that had been hidden from Alliance inspection. The Terminus didn't power up massive weapons or deploy fighter squadrons like the alien vessels. Instead, it began transmitting on frequencies that neither side monitored anymore, channels abandoned centuries ago. "Quantum field disruptors active," reported Engineer Wanhee. "Gravitational lenses deployed." The Terminus seemed to shimmer, slightly, not disappearing entirely but becoming difficult to focus on, like trying to see a clear glass in clear water. The ship wasn't invisible, but it slipped into a perceptual blind spot that both ancient powers had never thought to defend against. "We are now effectively masked from their targeting systems," Wanhee confirmed. The vast emptiness of space had known little peace for 800,000 years. Two mighty civilizations, the Galactic Alliance and the Draxian Empire, had been locked in an endless conflict that spanned thousands of star systems. Admiral Dae Ho of the Alliance's 7th Fleet stared at the holographic battle map, his weathered face illuminated by the red glow of enemy positions. 800,000 years of war had shaped entire species. Countless generations had lived and died knowing only conflict. "Another stalemate at the Cygnus front," reported Commander Su Min, his chief tactical officer. "The Draxians have deployed their temporal shields again." Dae Ho nodded wearily. "As expected. After so long, there are no surprises left in this war." He walked to the observation deck of his massive flagship, the Eternal Vigilance. Through the reinforced viewport, he could see the distant flashes of battle, a light show that had been performing without pause since before most species had discovered fire. The war had begun so long ago that the original cause was lost to time. Some scholars claimed it started over territory. Others insisted it was sparked by a religious dispute. The truth no longer mattered. War had become their way of life, their culture, their purpose. "Admiral," called a young officer named Jin Woo. "The Draxian 5th Squadron is advancing toward our position. Standard formation Delta," Dae Ho ordered without emotion. "Deploy gravity wells at these coordinates." The Alliance ships moved with practiced precision, The Draxian vessels responded with equally predictable countermeasures. It was like watching an ancient dance where both partners knew every step. On the Draxian side, War Commander Hyun Ki observed the Alliance movements with cold calculation. His species had evolved during the war, their bodies now more machine than organic. Hyun Ki's metallic skin gleamed under the harsh lights of his command center. The Alliance deploys their gravity wells, reported his second, a female named Sunhee. Exactly as predicted by the war algorithms. Hyun Ki nodded. Activate the phase shift engines. We will move through their trap as we have 10,000 times before. The massive Draxian warships seemed to flicker, partially shifting between dimensions, to avoid the gravitational weapons. The Alliance, having anticipated this response, launched their quantum-tethered missiles, weapons designed to follow their targets across dimensional barriers, and so the pattern continued, as it had for millennia. Attack, counterattack, move, countermove, a galactic chess game where neither side could achieve checkmate. In a quieter corner of the command ship, two junior officers spoke in hushed tones. "Is it true what they say?" asked Junho, newly assigned, to the fleet. "That some planets have seen 100 generations born and die without ever knowing peace?" The older officer, Minho, nodded solemnly. "My great-great-grandfather fought in this same sector, against the ancestors of the same Draxians we face today." "But what are we fighting for?" Junho pressed. Minho looked uncomfortable. "That's not a question we ask, young one. We fight because we fight, because we have always fought." Across the battlefield, similar conversations happened among Draxian troops, young warriors questioning, older soldiers having no answers beyond tradition and duty. Both civilizations had advanced to incredible technological heights, all in service of war. They could harness the power of stars, manipulate gravity, and even bend time in limited ways. But these technologies were developed only to gain military advantage, never to improve life or explore the universe. Admiral Dae Ho returned to his private quarters after the day's battle ended in yet another stalemate. He removed his ceremonial armor, heavy with medals from countless campaigns, each one ultimately meaningless. On his desk sat a small plant in a simple pot, a rare living thing aboard a vessel dedicated to death. It was a tradition among Alliance commanders, one of the few non-military customs that had survived. The plant represented the theoretical possibility of peace, something to nurture and protect. Dae Ho watered it carefully, then gazed out at the stars. Somewhere out there, he knew, Hyun Ki was probably engaged in some equivalent ritual. Two enemies, mirroring each other across the void, trapped in patterns established long before either was born. "Computer," he said quietly, "show me the historical battle record for this sector." The display flickered to life, showing thousands of years of conflict in this one tiny corner of the galaxy. The battle lines had barely moved. Millions had died for a few star systems that changed hands back and forth like a cosmic pendulum. Dae Ho sighed. Tomorrow would bring another battle. Identical strategies would be employed. Similar casualties would be sustained. Nothing would change because nothing had changed for 800,000 years. Neither the Admiral nor anyone else in the galaxy could imagine that far away, on a small blue-green planet, a young species was about to discover space travel. A species that would look at this ancient, endless war with fresh eyes and change everything in just 50 minutes. In the remote Orion Arm, far from the main conflict zones, an Alliance scout vessel detected unusual transmission patterns from a small blue-green world. "Captain Hajun, we've confirmed the presence of a spacefaring civilization," reported Science Officer Ji-un, her eyes fixed on the data streams flowing across her console. "They call their planet Earth. They appear to have achieved rudimentary, interplanetary travel within just the last century." "Interesting," Hajun replied, studying the sensor readings with growing curiosity. "They're practically infants by galactic standards." The Alliance vessel hung in the darkness beyond Earth's detection range, silently gathering information about this newly discovered species. The humans, as they called themselves, had just begun to venture beyond their atmosphere, a mere handful, of orbital stations and a small colony on their nearby moon. Their technology is primitive, Ji-yoon noted, but their development rate is that unusual. They've progressed from basic flight to space travel in less than 2 centuries. Ha-jun raised an eyebrow. That's remarkably fast. Most species take at least a millennium for such advances. The Alliance, following standard protocol for discovering new spacefaring races, dispatched Ambassador Taeyun to Earth with an offer of protection and technological advancement in exchange for resources and soldiers. This strategy had worked on dozens of young species throughout the millennia. When the massive Alliance vessel appeared in Earth's orbit, humanity reacted with a mixture of awe and caution. Earth's United Defense Council, led by Director Kim Min-ji, gathered in their underground headquarters beneath the city once called Seoul. "They could have destroyed us without warning," said General Do-yoon, studying the holographic projection of the alien ship. "The fact that they're communicating suggests they want something." Min-ji nodded thoughtfully. "Let's hear what they have to say before making any decisions." Ambassador Taeyun was permitted to land with a small delegation. He was tall and slender, with iridescent skin that shifted colors with his emotions, currently a diplomatic shade of calming blue. The meeting took place in a specially prepared chamber, with representatives from Earth's major regions present. "For 800,000 years, Taeyun explained, his translator converting his musical language to Earth's various tongues, our civilization has fought against the tyranny of the Draxian Empire. We offer you protection from their expansion and access to technologies beyond your current understanding." He activated a small device that projected images of planets being destroyed, vast fleets battling across the stars, and technologies that seemed like magic to human eyes. "All we ask in return is your allegiance, your resources, your soldiers, a small price for advancement and security." The human delegates exchanged glances. This was standard procedure for the Alliance. They had made this same offer to countless young species, most of whom eagerly accepted the chance to leap forward technologically by centuries. "We appreciate your offer of alliance," Min-ji told Ambassador Taeyun after the presentation. "Earth will consider your proposal carefully. We request time to discuss among ourselves." This response surprised Taeyun. Most species faced with the alternative of potential Draxian conquest agreed immediately. "Of course," he said smoothly. "Take the time you need. We will remain in orbit awaiting your decision." When the aliens had departed, the Earth Council remained. "They're using us," General Do-yoon stated bluntly. "They need cannon fodder for their war, nothing more." "Perhaps," Min-ji agreed. "But they're also offering us the stars, technology that would